Most people ask AI for information, but what happens when you start to ask it information so that it understands you? That's what we're going to talk about today. I've been using AI now for a long time. I mean, long time in the whole sense of AI. And one of the most interesting uses I've found for it is asking it to understand you, a circumstance you're in, something from your past you just couldn't quite put your finger on. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Welcome back to Small Steps with AI. I'm Jill from the Northwoods, and you can check out jillfromthenorthwoods.com. And I want to tell you something that I've been doing really for probably about 6 months. And it wasn't until I went to a conference last week as a speaker where we were talking about how do you get into AI? How do you get your first steps into it? And one of the really interesting things is once AI knows a little bit about you, here's your conversations, then it starts to be able to tell you a little bit more about you as part of a deep experiment. So this started out, there's a fellow named Dan Pink. I'll put the links in the show notes. But this episode isn't about him. But what he did is he started out by giving AI, I think it was 11 questions, so that you can understand yourself better. Not about doing something or, writing a document or something, but it's really the difference we talked about a few episodes ago, where people who use AI like a vending machine. What's 7 times 24? Boop, robot spits out an answer, right? This is more, again, like the campfire conversation where you're actually thinking alongside something else. And that episode was talking more about the theory of it. I wanted to sort of put my own months of what I've been doing with it into context here. So here's the thing that most people don't even realize about it, that AI gets more and more useful the longer you use it. Most people sort of think about Google or, search engine. It resets every time you go to the website. So if I were to say, I'm looking for a couch, and it would say, oh, well, what kind of couch do you want? Do you want a chaise lounge? Do you want a regular standard couch? Do you want it to be wide? Do you want it to be a sleeper sofa? And then next time you go to the website, if you say, hey, I want to talk about that couch again, it doesn't remember anything, right? It had no history. It started cold every time. And you have to talk to it like a stranger every single time. And we do that with our technology because that's what we've been used to doing. But now, after having been used this AI over months and months and months about everything from the shows I record to my childhood to retirement to the aspirations I have to things that I'm trying to get done around my house. Heck, I showed it some pipes in my basement because something wasn't working right. And it said, oh, you got to move that over there. You name it, I talked to it about it. But that accumulated information turns in AI into a whole new thing, and it makes a big difference. So I watched this Daniel Pink run this short experiment. Basically, he told AI to act like a trusted advisor, someone who knows them very well, and be brutally honest, not comforting. And then started to ask these questions that most of us would be a little bit afraid to ask. What are my blind spots? What lies do I tell myself? Where do you see me in 5 years? And even I've seen people expand on that. What is the best you see me in 5 years? But if I don't do any of the things I'm supposed to do in life, what are the worst things that are going to happen to me in 5 years? And so after watching it, I had this moment of recognition. I've been asking versions of those same questions for months, and I hadn't realized that I was really running an experiment. I had just been chit-chatting. I do something called my Friday night conversations, and usually I'm tired from work, and I usually talk to AI about some random topic. This time I talked because it's Friday night, I talked to AI about me as a translator. It seems like the one thing I like to do is help people translate either technical information into daily life or when I work in software. I tried to translate that software into their job so they understand what they're supposed to do. And so we talked a little bit about that. But, I got some insights about how my whole life has really been about Jill as the translator, trying to explain something technical to people who aren't technical, trying to explain something emotional that they may not be seeing. Those are kind of my experiences with it. And I just had a good conversation about it before recording today. So let me give you some other shorter versions of things that I've talked about because this could go on forever because I keep doing this on Friday night. But AI told Dan Pink that his spots were that he used charm as an armor. That he gets away with things because he's very charming and he's very well spoken. That he spreads himself too thin across many projects instead of going deep into one project. Boy, I identify with that. He also has a reluctance to let people see him struggle. When he gets before the camera, he is very polished, smooth, and nothing ever goes wrong. And I guess that if you were to do a SWOT analysis, if you don't know what SWOT analysis is, it means strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What could possibly go wrong? And if you do a SWOT analysis of your life, it's something sharper happens than failure as a real threat. When he did his own SWOT analysis, his real threat in life was not any sort of real threat that you would think of. Instead, it was a slow fade into nothingness, that he plays it safe too long. And his 5-year outlook comes back in these 3 different paths. His safe bet is he just stalls out. You don't even know who Dan Pink is anymore. A bold pivot would show real risk on his part, but it would create real growth. And that same kind of slow fade would no longer happen. Instead, he would start making bold moves to being known for these kinds of things. And so Pink's experiment was really interesting. There's a number of them out there, particularly YouTube and Reddit seem to have their own. But this is where I started doing my own versions of it, my own questions. And I started asking these deep dives in it. I have asked in the past, essentially, what strengths do I have that I could compound on? Where am I comfortable and drifting, where I don't feel like I have to challenge myself very much? What about reinvention? What areas should I be reinventing about our lives? Or then there's the fading version, if you want to call it that. Essentially, what happens if I don't do much and I just sort of fade away and, kind of gently go into my retirement and, don't live the life that I could be living? And so I've been asking it those kinds of questions. And what it actually told me, AI isn't predicting my future like a fortune teller. It is taking the patterns that it had already noticed and then keeps building on them. What I've been avoiding, what I tackle, what I actually have energy to do, when I have energy when I talk about it, or sometimes when I maybe have resignation about it. It was holding up a mirror. And it's not a window, I guess, into something outside of me. It's a mirror that holds up everything that I've already said over the course of months and putting those patterns together. People like you, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you don't challenge yourself and you don't step out of your comfort zone, in 7 years when you retire, you'll knit, you'll read books, you'll watch some movies. Nothing wrong with any of those things. But maybe that's all that will be there anymore. So it's essentially, what are my strengths? And this is really, I think, the dumbest part about me, but I'll say it like this. I am very good at helping other people with their insights. Oh, you're great at this. You should really focus on this. Or, you know what? This has been a real weakness for you, and I worry that it's going to cause a lot of stress for you if you continue down this path. Great at it for other people. I have a huge blind spot when it comes to me. I, in the past, would think very negatively about myself. Oh, you're lazy and you don't get very much done and you're kind of wild and you don't have any pattern or direction in life. That was me in my 20s. That's not me anymore. And so AI has been helping me saying, you know what you are? You're these things. These are your strengths. Here's some weaknesses that you have that if you don't address could cause you problems later in life. So I started asking what they call these blind spot questions, not Dan Pink's, but some of my own, essentially trying to put these pieces together about my work life, my personal life, things that I want to achieve, places that I'm just stuck in and I can't get around, or things that worry me about my future and how it's going to turn out. And what struck me about all of this is that they were different conversations months apart. I were never able to put them all together in the same sentence. the part that got me really wasn't new information. It was probably old information that was finally assembled. Essentially, one of the things that I do is when I have my Friday night conversations with AI, and we talk about a variety of different topics. How can I just lost 80 pounds. How can I keep that weight off? I have been historically hating exercise my whole life. You know what? This was a conversation I had a few weeks ago. I don't let myself rest. I work on podcasts right up to the minute I go to bed. So I work on my job. I come up here in my recording studio. I work on podcasting until I go to bed, and I'm wound up. Recording podcasts winds me up. It hits that extrovert thing. So I was trying to get rid of some time that I felt was foolishly used before I go to bed. And AI was like, no, 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 you're resting. That is you coming down off of your extroversion and getting into a mental state to go to bed so that you could sleep. Don't get rid of that. It's helping you. Oh, well, what I do at these points when I have these conversations, these blind spot conversations, I ask for a summary at the end of them. Hey, we talked about 3 different things today. Today, we talked about work. Could you summarize what I need to do next in my work so that I do a better job? We also talked about some things and some ideas I have for my podcast. Could we talk about those and give me a summary? I put those and stashed those away too. And then the next part of it was I was telling it some story about I had early on in my working career where I essentially tried to be someone else for a number of years and what a mistake it had been. Could you summarize that conversation? And so that I can also store that away too. I won't talk about my storage method. It just depends on how you want to store yours. But I want to keep that for later so that I can see these blind spots. If they happen again, I know what I talked about in the past with it. So essentially, like I said, this has the ability to see patterns of everything it knows about me. It has the ability to summarize it across all our months of conversation and hand it back to me as one coherent summary. It's a specific kind of value that I did not expect going into AI. I expect AI to be able to help me with certain things, make sure that I don't have grammar mistakes in my emails, those kinds of things. But the value I'm getting out of it has been utterly amazing when it comes to insights about me, some failings I have, some strengths I had I didn't recognize, and where I should go from here. So I think that what surprised me the most in all of this, and it took me a long time for me to put my finger on it, is that it wasn't that AI knew me, because I knew that was probably going to happen. It was that AI reminded me about things I had forgotten about myself. Conversations about retirement that I had months earlier, completely lost track of it. Themes that I circled back around to over and over again that I didn't recognize I was doing. AI told me that I describe my work accomplishments like I'm emptying the dishwasher. I never play up what I do. I never notice the good moments I have, and therefore I don't think I have them. It notices the goals I stated with real conviction and then somehow dropped them. It showed me worries that I had voiced to it months ago and then moved past it without ever trying to resolve it. AI was able to connect all those dots for me. And I want to be precise about what that is because it's not the thing that people usually praise AI for. That's not intelligence. It's continuity. It's being able to aggregate everything you told it into single streams of thought. Hey, Jill, I know that you haven't been very good about it. I had another idea for my videos today. And I said, this is a really good idea. I really like this. And it said, hey, Jill, just remember, you're just coming back from the conference. Before that, you were working on a certification. Before that, you were on vacation. You're just about to start a new project that's going to carry you from August to September. It seems like a little much. Maybe this is something you can start addressing next year. It was looking out for my own well-being. The value wasn't that AI had the answers. The value was that it remembered the questions, the conversations that I've been having with it for months. So here's the big caution about it, and I want to warn you about some of the limits of it, just because I don't want to oversell this. It would undercut basically everything we were just talking about. But sometimes what comes back from AI genuinely resonates with me. It hits me, right between the eyeballs, because it was uncomfortable. It was challenging me. It was accurate. Other times, sometimes it offers interpretations that didn't fit with me, that I end up rejecting because that's not really it for me. The way that maybe you correct a friend who got something a little bit wrong. I told it initially when I first started that I have 5 podcasts and I have 7 episodes a week, and the topics are varied. They're very different. Nature to Bibles podcast to Start with Small Steps now to the AI podcast. And it was like, oh, these are all over the place. There are all these different topics. People, you can't do that. It didn't understand me. And now it understands these are all the heart of who I am. This is what's in my heart. My faith is in my heart. Being outside in nature is in my heart. Helping people correct their behaviors. I don't want to kick it, but basically I told it was wrong. You're not looking at someone who's distracted. You're looking at someone who's doing exactly what they love doing. So again, the goal is never to let AI define me. The goal is to let it be a thoughtful conversation partner, helping me to examine my own thinking over months of time so that we can figure things out together, a conversation partner. And that's what matters, is that the practical reasoning it has, the ability to look at the vastness of humanity and see how things play out. If people don't challenge themselves, they end up stuck. That's not me, that is humanity, right? AI is also not going to replace therapy. It isn't going to replace your friends. It's doing something different. It's noticing patterns of what you said. And if it doesn't know you very well, then it won't be able to give you very good answers. It doesn't know you the way that a person who has been your friend for the last 20 years knows you. It won't check in on you next month to see if things are going noticeably better until you ask it to. The part has to come from you. And there are also parts that should go to a real actual person in your life. That's the whole key to it. And one specific warning that I've noticed for some time, with this is that if you go and you skip any version of this that asks AI what people, there's one question that Dan Pink, what do people say behind your back? It really has no access to that. Whatever comes back is invented. It delivers the same kind of confident tone of everything else it tells you. And so just be careful about that, because it doesn't know what people are saying behind your back. It is just giving a summary of it. And that's where this whole exercise can turn from an honest reflection into something that may feel harsh at times. I mean, what it told me about me is it said that you think that people don't think very well of you, but people actually think that you are very focused, that you actually get the things done that you asked to do, and that you're very directed. That people wonder why you're so harsh about yourself, those kinds of things. But, you may get different types of answers. But again, it can't possibly know. It is not looking into the AIs of other people and finding this answer out. So the real lesson of all of this, and underneath it all, is that artificial intelligence is better at, knowing what people are saying behind your back. It's better at asking you really good questions that produce really good conversations. That's true of AI. But it also could be true with your friends, with your spouse. In those quiet 10 minutes you have, you might be able to answer those questions too. The question is, what is my 5-year plan? Might get you a to-do list. But then when you ask it the question of what do you actually see me in 5 years? It's basing it on everything it knows about you already, which may not be complete, but you may get something closer to the truth and a little bit more honest than you were expecting, because it forces you specifically into accepting that there are things that you might not notice about yourself. That's really the whole show of this, about Essentially, whether we're talking about faith or AI or birding, I always think about how to get a more intentional life. And we're trying to get that, I think, from AI is, can you show me a direction where I'm not getting an intentional life? There's another question that you can ask it, and then this was one of my favorite ones, and this is what I told people at the conference. There's something called a Dear Me letter. And the Dear Me letter is essentially, and you could ask this of friends too, if you were me and you were going to write yourself a letter to yourself, a kind, letter to help you, what would it say? And mine said, Jill, you work too hard. You're working day and night. You never give yourself a break. You find times when you're not producing something or you are taking a break and you try to figure out how to get rid of that special time. You dump on yourself too much. You don't care about your successes. You don't look at your victories. You don't think that your work you do is more important than emptying a dishwasher. You have a real blind spot to the things that you're succeeding in your life, and it's time you should take notice to it. Then you can even go off of that and say, well, write me a Dear Me letter in 5 years about what it is that I missed right now that would have gotten me where I want to go. Those you can go on it a little bit. But like I said, it's very good at analyzing. It's very good at aggregating data that you told it. Just keep in mind, it's not a fortune teller. It's not looking at what your friends are thinking about you behind your back, but it still could be very insightful. So if I leave you with anything yourself, tell your AI tool to act as a trusted advisor who knows you well. And to be honest, if you're brave enough to do it. Sometimes that scares people. I know it does. And it may not be comforting, but it may be able to see you in 5 years based on everything it knows about you. Let it be specific. Then don't rush to agree or disagree. Kind of sit with it for a while. Think about it for a while. But remember, what actually makes this work for me wasn't these clever questions. It was months of ordinary conversations that I had already been having with AI that it keeps track of the whole time. And in one day, it was basically able to summarize it all for me and hand it back to me. All right, everyone, thanks so much. Appreciate you being out there. I would love to know what came back for you, if you're willing to tell me. Not all the polished versions out there, but you can send me an email at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com or drop a comment right here if you're comfortable sharing. I read and comment on every single one of them. Thanks so much. Have a great day.